So today we shall take a small passage from one of the earliest drafts of Savitri made by Sri Aurobindo. That was during the Arya period, 1916-1918. At that time, Savitri was just a tale running into a narrative of about 800-900 lines. And the concluding part of that is what he had named as the return to earth. It is that little passage we could take today just to get an idea of what kind of inspiration was present already there in that early period of Savitri's drafting. There are a number of interesting things also in it, but let us first read the passage as it existed at that time. Now, this passage has been incorporated or is a part of Book 11, The Everlasting Day, towards the end. Savitri has won from the Supreme Himself wonderful boons. She has fought with nature, she has fought with fate, she has fought with death, she has won victory over all of them. She has also now fought with the Supreme Himself, and it is as a result of that she is getting some wonderful boons. It may appear to us rather strange that the Supreme is there in front of you, God Himself is there in front of you, and you are arguing with Him. You are challenging Him. You are asking to do this and that, and insisting that this must be done and not that. You see, that looks to us, to our human mind, something strange, something even undesirable. That we are in front of God, who is the giver of everything, and we are quarreling with Him, we are fighting with Him. But Savitri had that courage to fight with Him also, because it is a fight not of ignorance against ignorance. It is a fight, it is an assertion, it is an affirmation of truth in truth. There are possibilities of truth, and each truth can develop in its own manner. So, Savitri is asserting a certain type of truth to the giver of the boon of the truth, the Supreme Himself. And the Supreme is allowing it that. In other words, Savitri, though she has identified her will with the Supreme's will, she has full freedom also to exercise her own free will. It is not as submissively like a subject. She is just surrendering to the Supreme and accepting whatever thou wants to do, whatever it is. It's not that. She is in a position to argue with Him and get things done the way she would like things to happen. In fact, this has happened earlier also in the case of Ashwapati. Ashwapati meets the Divine Mother. She advises him to do this, and this man says, sorry, I am not going to accept what you are suggesting. You have to do this. He is insisting even to the Supreme Mother that she has to do certain things in this manner. And of course, he is arguing, he is putting forward his case very strongly, with conviction, with full power, with full will, with all the truth in it. And the Supreme, in a certain sense, is happy that he is exercising his free will. The whole problem is, the whole issue is, the whole crux of the matter is that you have a free will even in the presence of the giver of the Supreme will. That is the individuality of the individual. the individuality has to assert itself even in the transcendent. It is not a kind of a flatness which is desired in the transcendental manifestation. And therefore, each individual should develop a capacity to exercise his own free will and get what is required in his view, in his opinion, in his conviction, in his truth principle, to build up something new in the manifestation. That is the whole purpose of the freedom of will, you see. Now that is an example which you see here in the case of Savitri. Savitri said that, all right, you are giving wonderful boons, go to heaven and live happily forever with Satyavan there. She says, sorry, I am not interested in that. Those heavens are not new to me. I am actually a denizen, a citizen of those worlds, and therefore they are not of any charm to me. They don't really attract me. What I want is for the sake of the soul of the earth. My insistence is that there should be manifestation of the divine principle of the truth on the earth. If she is the Rutambara, full of truth, then she must also establish that truth in the earth also, not only in heaven. It has to come down in the mortal world, on the Mrityuloka. And then only the new manifestation can take place. So in a certain sense, therefore, the divine is extremely pleased with her argument. And he says, yes, what you are asking is exactly what I also will. That we have willed it that way, I am happy about it. And therefore he gives the boons to her. Now, after receiving the boon, Savitri comes back to the earth. That whatever she wants is for the sake of the earth. So she comes back with the soul of Satyavan to the earth. And while she is coming back, she sees behind her following Krishna and Kali, as we saw last time earlier.
Yes.
It is Krishna and Kali who are coming down for the play of the Supreme's manifestation upon earth. His Anandamaya Leela is the will of Krishna, and the execution of his will is the function of Kali. So the dynamic aspect in the Leela, in the Ananda of manifestation, is what Savitri is really bringing down upon earth. And the description is what we have here in the passage which was given, which was written by Shevendra in 1918 itself. We'll just quickly read that part. Amidst the headlong rapture of her fall, she is coming down from heaven down below, of her fall, held like a bird in a child's satisfied hands. As a child would keep a bird in his hand very carefully, very lovingly, very endearingly, in the same manner Savitri is keeping in her hand like a bird, in enamored grasp, a spirit's trough, admitting no release till time should end. And as the fruit of the mysterious joy, she kept within her strong, embosoming soul, like a flower hidden in the heart of spring, the soul of Satyavan. So she is keeping the soul of Satyavan like a bird in her heart, and she is bringing that soul of Satyavan down below. The soul of Satyavan down by her inextricably in that mighty layer. She is falling down, and while she is falling, she is holding firmly the soul of Satyavan in her bosom. Now, it is interesting to note that the earlier drafts of Savitri had different spellings for Satyavan, Savitri, Jumatsena, Ashwapati, and all those proper Sanskrit names. Shevendra has written here Satyavan as Sutyavan, Satyuvan. Same way he used to write Savitri in those days as Savi, Thri, Savitri. Now, perhaps it is to bring a kind of a softness to the English language that he is using th, Satyavan, Savitri, Ashwapati, Jumatsena. It is not the harshness of the Sanskrit syllable which is very palatable, but the softness which is what he is bringing out in naming this thing. But later on he changed that spelling to Satyavan and Savitri.
But it is more or less seems to be Bengali accent.
Yes.
Satyavan.
No, this was at that time we did not know much Bengali also. Yeah. Satyavan, yeah, it's true. Inextricably in that mighty lapse, invisible heavens in a thronging flight soared past her as she fell. So Savitri, keeping the soul of Satyavan in her bosom, is falling down. And the analogy which is given here is, as she is falling down, the heavens, all the worlds, they are rising up. It is the image of relativity. You are traveling in a train, you think that you are stationary and the trees are moving backward. It is that image here, the image is of the vertical fall. Savitri is falling as if the heavens, which is stationary, which is stable, they are rising up. There is a very descriptive image of similar kind in Virgil's Aeneid, when Aeneas starts moving away from the shore. His ship is now drifting away from the shore. So as the ship is drifting away from the shore, he sees that it is the skyline of the city which is receding back.
Yeah.
The ship is stationary, but the skyline which is drifting back, you see. So here we have got a very unique example of vertical relativity. Savitri is falling down and the heavens are rising up. In other places you have horizontal symmetry, relativity, you see. Then all the blind and near attraction of the earth compelled fearful rapidities of downward bliss. She is falling down and all the sweetnesses, charms, beauties, joys, whatever is cherished here upon earth, they are drawing closer and closer to Savitri. She is feeling kind of happy also about that. Fearful rapidities of downward bliss, lost in the giddy proneness of the speed as she is falling very rapidly. See, she is coming from the seventh heaven down to the earth, practically no time. So she must be feeling very giddy also about that. You see. Lost in the giddy proneness of the speed, whirled, sinking, overcome, she disappeared. Like a leaf spinning from the tree of heaven, so she is a leaf now, which is falling from the tree of heaven and spinning and coming down on the ground, you see. Like a leaf spinning from the tree of heaven in broad unconsciousness as in a pool. It is falling in the pond down below here. A hospitable softness drew her into a wonder of miraculous depths. Above her closed the darkness of great wings, and she was buried in a mother's breast. She is falling down in the softness. What happens above? Above her closed the darkness of great wings. The heavens are there, they are sitting back, they are not now anymore visible, as if there is a kind of a curtain, there is a kind of a veil, there is a kind of a darkness which is separating this from that. In fact, a bright and beautiful angel comes and pulls a huge big gate the moment Savitri leaves heaven. And it is that gate now which has to be opened again from down below, you see. So above her closed a darkness of great wings, and she was buried in a mother's breast. Mother's breast, Mother Nature, Mother Earth, she is now back to her dear, cherished, darling Earth with her Satyavan, and whatever has to happen now will happen here
Yes.
because Krishna and Kali are following her. She has established that thing. So, as a result of all that, what happens then? Over wide earth brooded the infinite bliss. So, earth is now surrounded by infinite bliss because of the boon Savitri has received, because the soul of Satyavan she has brought back from the divine himself, you see, after conquering death. You see. So that is how, more or less, the first draft of Savitri, which was written in 1916-1980, was concluded by Sri Aurobindo. These 800-900 lines have been, in different manner, incorporated in the final version, but somehow the lines which are present here have remained intact as they are even in the final draft.